Beginning of my video. Boom!
Welcome back to Boring Reviews.
Boring Land.
Oh, just kidding.
Blasphemer!
All
Hello,
right.
Boring Review Nation!
Kind of pointless.
We know all things. It was over in a snap.
We really want it. Alright, we'll be nice.
Only you can be a Patreon.
Oh my gosh!
Look out.
You don't need to follow the show to be hyped.
Welcome to Boring Reviews.
Boring Review Nation, Jody! Come on!
And Lands.
Boring Land. Nick here.
Gabe.
Jody. So I have to say that as we're getting in behind the desk, we're sitting here talking about Barfi, and Nick's getting all mad. He's like, stop talking about it. Wait
Dude,
for the recording.
As you can tell, Jody's super excited because this is her cup of tea. The romantic, stories and the rom-coms. I'm sorry, that's just not my cup of tea. Let me preface this by saying I also didn't like Pretty Woman. I know that's like blasphemous to say, you know what I mean? But I'm like, really? The hooker with a heart of gold? I don't buy that story. I'm sorry.
Girls trying to make a living. So, if you haven't caught it yet,
Girl,
these two novices here, we are reviewing Barfi today. Barfi, that's right. We just had a trailer reaction. Hopefully it got posted. I had a hard time trying to get the trailer downloaded. But hopefully I got it downloaded before we talked about it, because we did react to the trailer before we watched the movie. And so Barfi, as you know, is a romantic comedy type film. Very unique. And it is something that involves Barfi, who is deaf. She loves sign language. She took 4 years of it in college. And so I'm watching it 30 minutes through. I didn't realize it was a romance. I didn't know really anything about it besides what the trailer showed.
thank you.
But I didn't know it was going to be her cup of tea until about 30 minutes in. So I paused it, told her we got to watch it together. And so we started over, which kind of helped me. I actually enjoyed the first 30 minutes the second time around. I really did. But we're going to be reviewing Barfi. And like we mentioned in the trailer reaction, the word barf in English means to throw up. So Barfi was kind of an interesting name. You'll understand why he got that name. But before we get in the review, don't forget to do the usual stuff. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and check out the Patreon. We appreciate all our patrons. Thank you so much for that. If you want to be a patron, go ahead and consider checking it out, because we are going to be releasing videos specifically just for our patrons. So if you want to see those extra videos, go ahead and check that out. But let's get into Barfi. So I kind of want to wait for you for a second. Let's have the resident romantic film lover begin with her thoughts.
So I have to admit, it did have a little tender spot in my heart, because I do have a soft spot for the deaf community. So that was a little sweet. But I liked it. I felt that Barfi was too comical for my personal taste. Like, my favorite part about romance is the character. The character, thank you.
Played by, I'm sorry, I just want to say is Ranbir Kapoor plays Barfi.
There you go.
Ranbir Kapoor.
My favorite part about romances is falling in love. I want to fall in love. I want to fall in love with the characters. And he was just, I want to fall in love with all the men out there.
How many times did she fall in love?
Every day, baby.
We gotta have a conversation, Nick.
Things are starting to make sense.
Oh, man.
Well, if they don't have a wet nap, then they're just not worth my time.
Yeah, they gotta come up with a wet nap.
Exactly. Start pulling that wet nap.
It's worked for me every time.
Every time.
One for one.
But I mean, so I felt like I couldn't fall in love with him so much just because he was so goofy. Right. But I enjoyed the romance.
Right.
I enjoyed his love with, what was her name at the very beginning? Shultry? Shruti. But I enjoyed their romance. It was totally, I don't know if you guys have seen The Notebook, but that moment where the mom takes her to the forest to see her
word
past
for
love,
word from The Notebook, that scene. Not the movie,
Notebook.
but that scene.
Let me just interject right there. Never seen a Notebook. No desire to see the Notebook. Oh gosh, the Notebook.
I would recommend the book. There's something beyond the movie, but the movie was actually pretty good. But that kind of took me out too. I mean, it was okay.
Right.
But it's all about, the mom saying, don't marry Barfi. He can't support you. Marry for money, blah, blah, blah. And she listened. And so I get why she listened. But it was so heartbreaking. Like when he comes to her house all excited to ask her to marry him, and he's sitting with the parents, and the mom knows what's going on, and it's nice that she kind of covered for him.
Right.
But he gets so mad at her, and he's like, I kissed you, like I loved you, I fell in love, like why are you doing this? And he's like, but then he kind of realizes like he's poor. Look at his shoe and his hole in his jacket pocket and everything. So you feel for him. But I was not expecting him to fall in love with Jamil. Is that your name?
She's just
Jamil.
throwing out the spoilers. She's just going.
I'm going all for it. I'm telling you.
She loves it.
I was not expecting them to fall in love. And at first I
Me
thought
neither.
it was more of like a fatherly, brotherly kind of love. Like he felt obligated to take care of her because she wanted to be with him. But when he freaked out when she was gone.
Right.
And then here he has the love of his life living with him and he could care less.
No, he could care less.
That's true love.
And it started that way. I mean, you see that one flashback of him younger throwing the shoe up over the window to
Yes,
her attention.
that was sweet.
So they knew each other for a very long time.
Right.
I was really thrown off. I didn't realize it was the actress Priyanka Chopra until halfway through because she seemed so different in this role. Just the wig, she looked much younger. I didn't realize that she was playing someone that was like in her early 20s or something like that. But anyways, their relationship starts off like kind of that friend, then older brother or whatever, and she's always following around at some point. Even when he kidnaps her, she keeps following around. He's trying to get rid of her. But you can see once he decided to get her from that dangerous situation and they moved to wherever they moved to start their new life, then you can see them not really fall in love so obviously, but he saw her in a different way so that when he did lose her, then you see that reaction. I absolutely love that. But I absolutely love this movie. I really did. I don't mind romantic films like someone over here. I can
It's all about the
appreciate them.
villain.
They're not my favorite genre, but this movie, I was surprised with how much I responded to it, how much I reacted to it. This movie is so unique, and that's what I love the most about it. It reminded me of like an Italian type film or French bistro type thing, where like a Ratatouille, like I mentioned in the trailer reaction. The music was very unique and very fantastic for an Indian film. They're talking about Darjeeling. I had to look that up. Is that in India or are they in Italy or something like this? Because this place is absolutely lush and beautiful. The setting,
really
the
pretty.
backdrop, the location it was at. I love the love story. I loved, like you had mentioned, you don't expect him to fall for Tamil. You want him to go for, or you think he's going to go with Shruti because she's just, his love of his life. But everything about this, the thing I love the most, and then I'll let you get into your fumigation here. The thing I love the most was not just the character of Barfi. He was fantastic, but the style that they gave this character and that he was able to perform, because he reminded me of Marcel Marceau. And she had mentioned Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah,
the reason I established the Marcel Marceau is because my mom loved I Love Lucy. We used to watch her reruns all the time. And there's a very famous episode where she dresses up like Marcel Marceau. I can't remember why, but they're doing that whole bit where they're like looking at a mirror glass and they're moving at the same time. And she's trying to confuse this person to think that it is a mirror. And it's a classic scene. That type of comedy that Marcel Marceau was famous for was what this movie was like and what Barfi was doing. And it really threw me back to my childhood watching that with my mom. And I thought that was extremely inspirational and unique. But not just that, just the whole story. I absolutely love this movie.
One quick thing. I know I'm going to cut you off. I got to put one more point. Is the thing I loved is that Barfi was not embarrassed by Jamil at all. No matter what she did, he was never embarrassed if she did things that were out of the normal. And even Shruti. Sorry, I keep forgetting her name. Shruti. Even she was kind of embarrassed by Barfi at sometimes. Like when he was doing that dance at her little party and stuff, she's like, oh, no. And so I do appreciate that. Just appreciating somebody for themselves.
Okay, here's the thing. With
Bash.
Okay, I'm gonna say
we're gonna bring some Team Nick people right now and Team Jody.
I prefaced it earlier by saying one of the biggest romantic comedies in America of all time, Pretty Women, I did not care for. Similar to this, I don't like romantic comedies because it means it's just not realistic enough, all right? First of all, how many guys, and I give Barfi all the credit, but how many guys are going to choose the not hot chick, okay, over the super hot chick? That just doesn't happen, all right? That, to me, that doesn't
fall in love with who you fall in love with.
Okay, you fall in love with who you fall in love with. Well, she had also fallen in love with Barfi, and she even told her mother she loved him. She didn't love this other dude, but what did she do? She went for the cheese. She went for the cheddar, for the cash. Her mother even convinced her to do it. So
okay, so not to be that annoying person, she was committed to Darjeet, I think his name was, her fiance before she even met Barfi.
Right.
So there was that kind of sense of obligation. She was impressed that all the girls at the university thought he was cute, and so I think that kind of helped. as nice of a character they portray her, she comes from money. She's all about. She's not all about, but she's a lot of hers about status.
Right.
And so she made that commitment. Here's this guy who's like the town goofball. There's no way, but his personality won her over. And then she started thinking about it. She goes to her mom. Anyways,
Right.
There's more to it than just that.
I mean, those were some of the things that bothered me initially. Then here's the thing: we talk about this. I'm very seldomly lost in a movie. I was lost for like the first 45 minutes, 45 minutes, because of the choice of A, pacing, and then B, this is almost a silent film. You're right, Charlie Chaplin. There's like so much time where there's no dialogue, just music going on.
I love that.
And I'm like, okay, especially when I got to rely on subtitles to try to follow the story, but there's not even that many in there. And taking a movie with that challenge, and again, because we have to go with the subtitles, but then you make it non-linear. I didn't know what time was when at some point. I was like, wait, when did this happen? When did that happen?
It gave you a
Dates
date
on
time
the
stamp right
bottom.
there.
I mean, 6 years later or whatever, but I mean, the
It would
story
have an
got
actual date.
confusing or whatever. Well, I might have missed a couple here or there, but I'm just saying it got confusing. But I will say the redeeming quality for me of this film is the acting by the character that played Barfi. Dude, I've never seen a guy have an argument without saying a single word. Like what you were saying, that scene when he goes to the house to try to say, you know, he wants to marry her, and then the other guy's over there and she chooses him. He goes out, she follows him, and he loses it. He's like doing all kinds of stuff. Like, I've never seen that kind of emotion just by, I don't know sign language, but I could tell he was telling her some choice words, okay? And it was the way he was able to convey that was awesome. Also, when his dad in the hospital died, like, I knew it just by the look on his face. He finally gets the money from I like how this says, the ransom.
By any means necessary.
And I would have, you know, for a parent, I would have done the same. So, again, he gets the money, goes to the hospital, and then too little, too late. You know what I'm saying? His dad died, and you could just tell on the look on his face. Like, he did a lot of acting with his face, and that's important in this kind of silent film.
Super tough. You gotta sell it.
I give him
He was awesome.
His acting was amazing. Also, and I love her, and I know I'm a fan of hers from Quantico, but I think it's Priyanka Chopra. Priyanka Chopra. Holy cow. To see her as hot as she is in Quantico and as sharp as she is, she's this FBI agent. She's stopping terrorists. To hear where she is such an innocent and vulnerability to her, like, that was amazing. But I did not care for the other female character. I'm like, listen, you gave up your chance not once but twice, and now you want us to feel sorry for you. I did not feel sorry for her. I'm glad at the end her redeeming quality was when they were walking away and Priyanka Chopra's calling her out. I thought she was going to do something else shady and be like, well, you know, Barfi can't hear her, so let's keep going. Let's keep pushing.
She was
Which
close.
really would have made me hate her.
I thought she wasn't going to say anything.
I thought she wasn't going to say anything either.
But she saw the writing on the wall. She realized, I mean, she had her time with Barfi where he thought and she thought that Tamil was gone. And he didn't, you know, turn to her. He didn't fall in love with her. He didn't care about her. He didn't even recognize her. And, you know, I understand your point of view, but you can also consider it a tragedy for her character because she made the wrong choice and now she has to live with it for the rest of her life.
She could have had Barfi.
She lost the money and she lost Barfi and she had nothing. It looks like at her old age that, you know, she was still pretty alone. I did think it was interesting, though, that she got the last few minutes with Barfi, spoiler alert, before he dies, and then Tamil comes in and gets like the last few seconds and sleeps on his chest. I did think that was interesting. She came out to kind of announce that he's gone, and then the wife goes in. That was just for the story, so you don't realize that they got married until the very end. But I want to go back to Ranbir Kapoor. This guy, I've never seen him in any movie yet. This guy is fantastic. Like you said, he's able to do the acting without much dialogue. I appreciate not having too much dialogue because it was less subtitles I had to read. And even though I don't like using my brain too much when I use a movie, I appreciate it here because of that comedic effect, because of that Marcel Marceau type of style. I mean, this guy was cracking up. He was so charming. It was the first thing I told Jody when I said, you know, you got to watch this movie with me. We got to review it. This guy is so charming. He's so endearing, and he portrays every emotion you can think of. The way that they were going back and forth with the pacing, usually that bugs me. But I felt like they did it in such a way where it was like opening presents where you're not sure what's going to happen next. You're not sure what is this going to lead to that. There's a lot of small scenes I loved, like where he breaks into the ball where Shruti's in there. And he knows that she's in there, so he's like, yeah, fine, take me to your manager, because he knows that she's going to save him. And then he's just doing that little dance that he does with, I mean, he is just so likable.
He doesn't say take me to her. He's climbing up the wall. I mean, straight up walking up the wall.
Because he wants her attention. If you, because I got to see it twice because you were catching up the second time, he's out there and he's like, oh no, I got caught. And then he sees her in there and the guy says or whatever, I'm going to take you to my manager. He has a smile on his face. And so he allows to go, and then he's doing that crawling to get her attention because she wasn't paying attention.
Right.
That's my opinion at least. Let me know what you guys think. But more thoughts from you because I just keep talking here.
I'm just picturing him climb out the wall, and every time on his poor bicycle when he hits like a pole or something.
You would think instinctively he knows that pole's coming.
That's another thing. Wasn't the tone? I think the tone was off because there were some moments where, like you said, it was like slapstick Charlie Chaplin comedy. He's climbing up the wall. There was one scene where the cops are chasing him and a bus comes by. I can't make this up. He grabbed it with his arm.
That was so cool.
And it was a super cool scene.
Yes.
But dislocated?
Yeah, I'm sure his shoulder got dislocated. That was a super cool
scene. But again, I think that's the style that this director was going for. I've never seen this in a modern film in my life. I haven't seen every film.
Right.
I feel like the director, the writer, whoever it was, the producers, they love that genre of film. They love that mime type of comedy. And so they were injecting it as much as they could in this love story that they created. And I absolutely loved how they pieced it in there. I mean, even the time period, it looked like it was, I know it's in the 70s. It looked to me like the American 1920s, 1930s or whatever, where that type of mime comedy was at its heyday. I just love how they infuse that in so many different elements. I love that scene where typically this is not a movie I thought I would have enjoyed as much after watching it.
I hear what
but
you're saying.
I absolutely just fell in love with this movie, and it's because of those main characters. Like you said, Priyanka Chopra does a fantastic job. I didn't even recognize her till halfway through, and I definitely knew who she was before watching this movie.
One of the most endearing scenes I still think about right now is after Barfi finally finds her again, and they go back, and now Barfi's standing there. Priyanka Chopra, her character is standing there. Jamil and the other lady, I can't remember. Sutri's over there.
Oh, and she vlogs?
Yes, I love that part because she's like,
that was cool.
She's like, the first time you were able to get his attention from me, not this time. And I thought that was so. Like, I fell in love with her even more because she's awesome in Quantico. She's a beautiful woman, but her acting again here was superb. But
she also had to portray someone that didn't fully understand the world the way me and you,
which is
we
what was
understand
amazing
it.
About her performance.
But she understood, this is my man. And that's the phrase that came to my mind right before that, when he's throwing that shoe so desperately hoping that there's a chance that she might be alive.
Right.
I honestly was feeling it. I was getting a little teary-eyed. I mean, this movie really, really got a reaction from me.
But then that's the one element, right? The romantic element. Then we have the comedic element. But then some of the heartstrings they pull in this movie, like the fact that his dad basically almost dies, and then eventually ends up dying because he's hearing impaired, and because of his disability, he couldn't hear his dad calling out for help. It was something that could have probably been resolved had he got him to the hospital immediately. The guy ended up having an attack and literally spending all night on the ground. You know what I mean?
But he had kidney failure, so even if he got into the hospital in time, he'd still need that surgery.
Right. I mean, I understand that.
But at the time, you think he's dead, right?
At that time, I thought he had died right then and there.
We thought he died, too.
And here's the thing. Could you imagine how that plays on Barfi? If it was more just of a drama, I could have gone with it. I just feel I was lost. That's probably my biggest problem. That and the fact that I don't like rom-coms. I'm just saying, 99% of dudes and guys, tell me in the comments. Let's be honest.
Don't say 99%. There's no way, because I know you're a lover of film, but I love film, and I don't really care what the genre is. I can't get into anime
that's not what I was
or whatever.
Gonna say. I said how many people would have made the decision or the choice that Barfi did. Where, okay, I get it. If he, like you said, he fell in love with Jamil's character, but after he, for all intents and purposes, think Jamil's dead, and he now has the love of his life back in his life, he doesn't even pay her any mind.
Because
he
she's not the love of his life.
I get that, but how many men would react that way?
Well,
if you're not in love,
I feel like I
don't know.
He loved her, or he thought he loved her. See, he never really got to know her. I mean, they had good times.
More lust than love.
But it was more, it was more attraction. You're pretty, I like you. But he really loved Jamil. But I feel like he's the comedic relief, because if you think about it, this film talks about a lot of dark things. I mean, you have an autistic girl whose parents don't want her.
Mom tried to
That's
strangle
Mom
something
him.
else
tries
we
to
didn't
hurt-
even touch about.
Dad doesn't
that.
want her. Grandfather loves her, so he takes her, but then he dies. Dad's trying to get rid of her so he can get money.
He just
'cause
wants the money.
That's all he wants.
Which was upsetting. As you're right, it talks about some serious elements, but
They-
then you
they
got the
throw
comedy,
her
then
away.
you got like all the
So,
different elements.
He kind of brings that life to the fact that you have this poor girl who's going to have a difficult life regardless.
Right.
To parents who don't want her, to her grandfather who dies, to another girl who's struggling with loving somebody but not sure. I mean, which way do you go? Do you go where your heart's desire is, where
Right.
you know life is going to be difficult and you're going to be poor?
Right.
Or do you go to the way where you know you're always going to be taken care of but you're not in love? I mean,
Right.
I feel like that is a typical situation that we see in film, in books, and just in life in general. A lot of people do have to make that decision on what they want and what's important to you. And so he kind of brings a lot of relief to some of these dark elements.
Well, and one thing I want to say about the choice he makes is, let's look at it this way. If Shruti chose Barfi instead of the man she married, Barfi would have had that time to spend with her. He more likely would have fallen in love with her because they had that quality time. And Barfi seems like a very loyal, very loving person. She made that choice to not be with him but be with the other guy, the security, so to speak. And so they never had that chance to bond. He had that chance. He wasn't trying to, but he had that chance to bond with Tamil for whatever long they were together. So that is what cemented the love that he had, and he held that love for the rest of his life. So it's even more tragic when you look at it that way, to where Shruti could have had that. The potential was there. I mean, the attraction was there, but she chose the safer route, and now she has to live with that fact for the rest of her life. I think that's the biggest tragedy in her storyline.
But here's the thing: if that's true, then it makes sense. But when did Barfi realize that, hey, she's not the one for me? When did he actually fall in love with Jamil? Do you remember that scene?
I think he didn't realize he was in love with Jamil until she went missing. He was so excited that Shruti was there. I mean, he even kind of got mad at her when she tried eating whatever they were eating and she didn't like it and had a reaction. And he was so involved, so excited that here's this girl I love and she's here. But once Jamil was gone, I think that's when it sunk in.
Well,
Shoot, she's important to me.
and the representation of when it cemented, in my opinion, for him, is when he chopped down a lamppost
And she
and
stayed.
hit the bottle,
That's
and she
true.
didn't run away.
That's what I was going to say.
Even Shruti backed up.
That's what I'm saying. Shruti did not trust him, backed up. So how can you say you love me? When you love somebody, you're supposed to trust them. And bottom line, like, I'm going to live with you. I'm going to die with you. What they talk about, dying in each other's arms. So she didn't trust him. Obviously, this is something he's done hundreds of times or whatever.
His mom.
But
not his mom, but who was the other person he did? I'm sorry.
I forget who he
He
did
did it with
in the
two other
movie.
people.
But
can we-
Jamil didn't flinch whatsoever. She
just sat there
absolutely
and
trusted
trusted
him. And that to me is when he fell in love with her. Like, you know what? This person trusts me the way I, want to be trusted, and I will trust her. You know what I'm saying?
And
So-
she's going to stay. They talked about in the beginning of the movie that people in his life didn't stay.
Right.
So that was nice to say. But can we not talk about the most endearing moment of the whole movie? Is when, like, he went to put his forehead to hers and she kind of backed up, and then she went and put her forehead to his. And then again, when they met each other, they put foreheads together. Like, oh, that was just so sweet. So romantic.
There was a lot of powerful moments in this movie. And there was a lot of metaphorical representations, like with the lamppost and the trust. There was a lot of where she didn't want anyone to touch her, even Barfi at first. And then she started to, trust, like you said, trust is a good word, more and more, to where she at least hold his clothes. And then you can tell when she started getting frustrated because he let go of that by sitting on the bus, the train next to Shruti. And she's kind of like, I mean, that's where Priyanka Chopra does such a good job, because she's able to portray that, again, without too many words. Her and both Ranbir Kapoor both did fantastic jobs portraying those emotions they were feeling. And
I think the only word I ever heard her say was Barfi or Barfi. That's the only thing I ever heard her say. Oh no, when he was teaching her how to write, she was like A, B.
She sang the song too that she was rocking out to a few times. She liked those.
And she said, "Grandpa, please." What she said? Give it to me, please.
Oh, the crystal ball that she wanted. But again, that's one of the things that, when I think about my favorite movies of all time, even when we did the Avengers, our top 10 Avengers moments, it's usually dialogue. It's how you deliver a line, right? That's what you think about when you're acting. Yes, you can act with your body and facial expressions, but something when you don't have that dialogue. I mean, I was personally never a fan of the black and whites and the silent films, you know what I mean?
Oh,
but
yeah.
I just felt like there's something that was left unsaid, and maybe I'm just not smart enough to appreciate fully a movie this way. But for me, and we kind of had this conversation earlier, I was like, oh man, wasn't a fan of this whole silent Charlie Chaplin, theme. Yeah.
And that's fine. Real quick, sorry. That's fine. And if someone would have told me, hey, you gotta check out this movie. There's not a lot of words being spoken. It's kind of like a Charlie Chaplin, Marcel type thing. And it's 2.5 hours long and this or that, I would be like, no, thank you. I'm not really interested in that. That's not usually my cup of tea.
Right.
But the way it was delivered, the way the script was written, the way the direction was there, even scenes like when he's on that little plank of wood on the railroad tracks and he's trying to get away from the cop, and then he stops. And for me, at least, both of us like, why did he stop? Who's there? And they don't tell you about till 20 minutes later that it's Tamil that it came back. There's stuff like that with a different pacing that just really kept me engaged.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just going to say one thing, too, with people who are deaf, they tend to be very animated with their facial expressions. Because I don't know about the sign language in India, but the sign language in America, it's very broken English. You don't have a lot of words like is, the, are. Like, those words just don't exist. And so there's no, like, do you want to go to the store? It's want to go to the store, you. And so a lot of times you have to show it in your facial, like, if you're asking a question, if you're upset, you deliver it all in the emotion.
I see.
And so I think that aided to a lot of his, he did a great job, but what we might have felt was like a little comical too,
right.
was probably more of his just delivering his own speech in a way.
Gotcha.
And you can see at the end of the movie when they're both older and they're showing, I think it was the credits scene, them when he was still alive, him and his wife, you can see that they were meant to be together because they were both there. They were both there for these special needs children and people.
That was cool.
And they're goofing around and they're doing different things. I mean, that was the thing I told her. I was like, man, that wig is so bad, that old man wig. But that was such an awesome scene to show that these are two people that are definitely meant to be together. And I love that whole idea of holding on to the shirt. It's a different way than holding hands, but it was their way of connecting.
His pocket.
Yeah, the pocket. I mean, I don't know. I understand what you're saying. Typically, I'd be on your side, and I understand, and I respect your opinion, but it's
funny. I was watching it with Savannah, and it just goes back to me because she was like, at the end, she was like, "Oh, that's how I want to die," And I was like, "Dude, I'm not even thinking about that." And hopefully, I'm allowed, because he didn't look that old at that point. I'm trying to make it long. I mean, I was gonna say with my advanced income, but come on, let's talk a little. I'm a school teacher, not advanced income. But with modern medicine, at least 80 years, 90. Not with my diet.
The thing I love is the first thing he said about the reason he didn't like this movie is it wasn't based in reality for him. This guy's favorite movie is Endgame. That is so much based in reality.
Wait, but that's different. I'm biased because I'm a big comic book fan. Of course, that's not based in reality. I just think all romantic comedies, and trust me, Savannah she loves all the Jennifer Lopez movies. I'm sorry, Jennifer Lopez can't act. Watch one. She's just hot.
She can act. She's not a strong actor.
Name one.
She can act.
Name
a person that can't act is when you're watching a movie and you can't even get through it because they can't deliver a line. She can deliver lines.
Priyanka Chopra here put on an acting clinic.
Well, yes,
try to find
obviously.
me anything Jennifer Lopez did that did like this. And she's in like a million romantic comedies and they're all the same.
You didn't like the performance in Selena?
I can't watch her movies either.
Thank you.
I can't. And I like romance.
I'm talking about Made in Manhattan. I'm talking about, what's the other one? The one where she's working
awesome in Anaconda.
The one where
she was good.
The one where she's working
at her nightgown.
The one where she's working at a store and then like the big head of the her company hires her. It's always the same story, you know what I mean?
Hallmark.
Rags to riches and the Prince Charming. Stop it. That does not happen. Does not happen. Ladies, does not happen.
Off the rails.
Just say I'm off the rails with it. And just be more realistic with what happens with the romantic comedies. I remember saying one thing, and I think Savannah looked at me, she said, really? We were watching Pretty Woman, one of her favorite movies. And I was like, one of the things that always bothered me was like, oh, it was only her third day. Stop it, okay? It was her third day. He just happened to pull up on her third day. He was her second customer, whatever the story was. I lived in the Bronx, 189th and Tremont, really rough neighborhood, and like 2-3 blocks from my house. Whenever we would come home at night, get off the train, we'd see the ladies on the night. And trust me, it wasn't their second or third day. Those ladies in the night were out there year after year after year. You start calling them by first name. Hey, what's up, Gigi? You know what I'm saying? That's real.
Okay, again, if we went to Endgame, right, and talk about...
Why is he attacking Endgame?
I'm not even talking about the science fiction. The fact that, hey, I just came up with the idea for time travel all of a sudden. We definitely need it. Stop it. we can get all the 6 stones now. Stop. Okay, get out of here. But anyways, back to Barfi. I absolutely love this movie. I enjoyed watching it with my wife. It's a great romantic comedy to check out. A different type of... That's what I really liked about it. I feel like a lot of romantic comedies, to your point, are the same rehash over and over. This is incredibly unique and original. I like the style of the entire movie. I liked how even I couldn't predict. It wasn't so predictable for the end. It was a great journey to go on. And, Kapoor did a fantastic job that with that character. I thought it was really weird. The part that took me out of was the crimes he was committing. I understand why he was doing that. But, I mean, this guy was going to any length in that criminal aspect where this guy seemed like a very sweet guy. I understand it's for his dad. I totally do. He had no other way of getting the money. But that was just a little weird. I was a little confused, like with all the different kidnappings. He sees Tamil in the car as he's walking away, and then he takes her out of that car. How did she get that car in the first place? What was that kidnapping attempt?
That was the second. So the first letter that they actually really got was Barfi's for the 7,000 rupees. And then the 100,000 was the
plan that the dad orchestrated.
Because Barfi dropped the girl back off at home.
Right.
He calls the other guy's like, what do I do? Like, she's back. So remember that guy in the all white in that house took her and said, okay, get this fake ransom.
Well, I think that was the second, because the first was the $50,000 ransom that was paid.
Right.
Then Barfi 7,000. Then the 100,000.
Then the 100,000. But either way,
just so many kidnap attempts.
It's true. It's the guy that the dad hired had her in the car that they drove up, and then the guy in the all white where she was with in the beginning, and at the end, he took her out of the car and said, come on.
No, I get that part. That was at the end when the car goes into the water. Right. But Barfi is walking. I think this is after he escapes from his armed robbery situation.
Oh, yeah, he sees her in the back of the car.
He sees her lying down in the back of the car. When he was going to go into her house and use the chloroform to kidnap her or whatever, he sees her in the back of the car. How did she get to the back of the car? What was that situation?
That was...
The dad set it up.
He'd already gone into the house to try to kidnap her, and she wasn't there. And then when he's coming out and he's running away, he sees her in the van. That's because she was already kidnapped.
By who?
By the dad.
By the dad.
The dad. He set it up from the beginning.
Scumbag. That dude was a scumbag.
He did set it up, and then Barfi took her, and then he dropped her off, so he got her back. Yeah. The dad just wanted the money from the get-go.
He wanted the money from the trust.
And I liked how the police officer finally got to the point, like, who benefits the most if she's dead?
Yep.
But, I mean, and they said he's a powerful man. Not making a servant's wage, not until she's dead does he get that money, so he doesn't have that much money.
His family.
I know. But that was my only issue, was just the crime thing. I get it was him trying to prove a point that he would do whatever. That was my only problem. Other than that, I enjoyed every minute of this movie. I'm ready for a grade on this. We are running long on this review, but that's okay. But for me, it's an easy A-, just because I've never seen a movie like this before. And so it was hard to connect this to any other kind of film. I was a little confused with the kidnapping, this or that going on. But overall, I really, really love this movie. It's an A-.
Jody,
you go first.
Me?
Let's get you hard.
Let's bring it down, then bring it back up.
I was struggling with the decision, but I just got to be true to myself, man. It's a C+. You know, I was teeter-tottering between like B- and C+. But again, and I get it. He didn't make this movie for the American audience, right? Mm-hmm. So he's not worried if people can follow. But it was just so hard for me with the pacing and the idea of having a non-linear storyline, and at the same time having such little dialogue in there that at times I was lost. I was really lost, and it took me a second viewing to really pick up on little nuances. I rewound this thing more times than I can count. Like, wait, what did I miss? What did I miss? Because there was just things that went over my head. And then again, I just don't like the romantic comedies. They're not my cup of tea. It's like country music, man. You're not gonna find anything on my iPhone of country music. You know, maybe one Garth Brooks song. That's about it.
When the thunder rolls.
That's it. Same thing with romantic comedies, man. I don't own any at home, and it's just not my cup of tea. So that's my grade, C+. But I will say it's only a C+ because of the acting. Because, oh man, Priyanka Chopra is amazing, and the guy that plays Barfi, what was his name again?
Barfi?
Barfi. I'm so horrible with his
Ranbir Kapoor.
He's called Murphy. His real name's Murphy.
Yeah. Right. His real name is actually Murphy, right? but he couldn't pronounce it. That was a really good performance. Again, I've never seen somebody have an argument without saying a word, and he let her have it. I was happy too.
And for the most part, you knew what he was saying, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
A couple choice words.
I even loved how he would do like that beautiful kind of thing with his
Yes,
really cool.
yes, he did it very well. So I'm kind of like in between two grades because romantic love story for me where I fall in love with the character. Since I liked him, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't like Mr. Darcy or Mr. Thornton or anything.
Who?
So Darcy
Jane Austen.
Thornton. Okay, whatever. So Thornton is from North and South. But yeah, Darcy's Pride and Prejudice. Captain Wentworth has my heart, and Mr. Tilney. Like anyway, so part of me wants to give it a B+ just because I didn't fall in love, but I appreciate the story. I appreciate the fact that it wasn't your traditional love story, that it had a twist. It wasn't this, you know what's happening already at the end. Yeah, so I'll give it an A because I do appreciate that stuff.
No, definitely. Anyone that says I know what was going on, you're lying. Because I was super lost. I was like, wait, what just happened? Let me rewind. Who did what? It's a who done it. You know what I mean? I was super confused.
A who done it. That's awesome. A who done it. I love that. So we got different grades, and that's awesome because everyone sees a movie and interprets it and sees it in a different way. And I respect both of you guys' grades. Obviously, I respect my own grade, but
yours is the best.
We're curious how you feel about it because I know we've gotten requests for Barfi many times. I'm not sure if it's the same guy always requesting it, but it seems like different people. So I'm curious what the overall opinion is. Let us know what you think about this movie. I really liked how in our top 5 in the comment section we had several people give their top 5s and their honorable mentions. That was really cool. Right. We like that kind of interaction. Go ahead and share that. Share with us how you feel about this movie. You typically do. And we hope you enjoyed this 3-person review, a little longer because there's 3 of us talking, and we had so many things to say about this movie. Thanks for the request, and keep it coming. And until next time.
Namaste.
How's the thing he does? Like this? Like this? There you go.
Sign language.